Good afternoon, candidates, and welcome to the Candidate Forum for District 31 School Board. We'll begin today with opening statements. We've drawn lots at the beginning to show who goes first, and that will today be Mr. Stern.
Thank you very much. Appreciate having the time this afternoon to speak with everyone. My name is Darren Stern. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters of Glenview and Glencoe for hosting this forum to allow all of our candidates to express who they are and to show how we all can make a difference for our community. My family and I have lived in Northwestfield School District 31 for the past 11 years. In that time, I have found my passion for this community and witnessed the educational system growing stronger. When given the opportunity to speak with others, I am proud to say we are a District 31 family. In my years of living in the area, I have seen District 31 be a leader in providing opportunities, high quality education, and support for the children in our neighborhoods. I have a proven track record and experience in supporting education. In 2016, I was asked to co-chair the District 31 Education Foundation's Winter Benefit. Following the successful event, which raised almost $18,000 for our schools, I was elected president of the foundation. District 31 deserves the best. I look forward to continually pushing for excellence, ask tough questions, and demand thorough responses to the parents and the community at large. I look forward to serving with my fellow board members and making a difference for our community. Please vote for me on April 6th, Darren Stern, so I can be part of the leadership team of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Parfitt, you're next.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd also like to extend my thanks to the League of Women Voters for setting up this forum and to my fellow candidates for showing such interest and engagement for this community. We all feel strongly and passionately about how awesome the school district is, and just thankful and happy to be a part of it. So what a wonderful opportunity. I was born in South Africa and moved to the US about 20 years ago and became a citizen 10 years ago. I'm living the American dream. I count my blessings every day. I'm so happy to be here. I've been part of the school district for 8 years, and I will be part of the school district for another 10 years. So that's a solid 18 years in the district, and I want to see it continue to grow and thrive. That's why I'm running, that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm encouraging everybody else to also be actively engaged in the success and forward momentum of the school district. I went to school at Indiana University, got a business degree. I went to Kellogg, Northwestern, and got my MBA. And I hope I can bring that business acumen to the school district and help in any way that I can. That's me. I'm looking forward to being part of this process.
Thank you so much. Mr. Dapin, you're next.
Thank you for the invitation and opportunity to participate in this forum. My name is Matt Dapin. My wife, Mindy, our two kids, Josh and Lily, and I are residents of District 31 in Northbrook. Lily attends Winkleman and Josh attends Field. We have lived in District 31 for about 8 years. The reason I am running for one of the 4 open seats on the District 31 school board is because I am very passionate to ensure all children have the opportunity for a quality education. I am a CPA and an MBA. I have overseen finance and accounting divisions of large, mid-sized, and small organizations. As such, I have plenty of direct experience of ensuring and governing fiscally sound budgets, negotiating contracts, and reviewing financial statements, schedules, and audit reports. I believe effective school board governance begins with members working collaboratively to establish a clear vision for at least a 5-year period with high expectations for student achievement and quality instruction that includes goals that support this vision. These goals need to be reviewed monthly, and individuals on the board are to be held accountable for the results. In addition, I believe an effective school board should comprise of members with a wide range of professional experiences. They should include accounting, education, and management. As there are no other candidates running or currently on the board that are CPAs, I believe I provide a unique skill set with extensive accounting experience and financial acumen. Furthermore, I'm a constant viewer of the District 31 school board meetings, so I'm abreast with amazing achievements along with the challenges that have faced District 31. As meetings can tend to run long, I would propose that a board member would monitor time for each meeting in order to ensure that the community can't digest all the topics covered in a reasonable time period. All in all, I recognize we are blessed to have an amazing and diverse community that has shown tremendous support to District 31. As a parent, I am proud to have my children attending both Winkleman and Field. Both schools have absolutely amazing teachers, administrators, and support staff. If I am fortunate to be one of the 4 candidates that gets elected, I promise to effectively serve District 31 with passion, integrity, and good character.
Thank you. Mr. Steres, you're next.
Thank you. Let me first thank the League of Women Voters for hosting today's forum. I appreciate you, Lynette, for moderating, and my fellow candidates for their participation. Most importantly, thank you to our audience for caring about the community and taking your time to make an informed decision when casting your ballot. My efforts over these past 4 years on our school board demonstrate my commitment and dedication to our community and my focus on all of our stakeholders. Let's review my record. 2 years ago, I was strongly in favor of conducting a superintendent search to find the best possible candidate to lead our district. Many of my colleagues, including the other incumbent running for re-election, inexplicably felt a search was not needed. That is one of our primary jobs as a school board, hiring a superintendent, and I, for one, certainly felt our district deserved a thorough search. I've remained steadfast on ensuring proper allocation of district expenditures. In 2018, I was the lone vote against spending $300,000 for the new Winkleman playground. Yes, our kids deserve a fantastic area to play, but I could not vote for such a large expense when we were not presented with more cost-effective options. Alternatively, I have been in favor of investing in students' academic growth by voting to increase the education days on our calendar. In 2018 and 2019, I was a leading voice in the modernization and beautification of our schools. Not only did we expand the capacity of Winkleman and improve the learning environment for our student body and staff, we greatly enhanced the curb appeal of Field Middle School, bringing tremendous value to the entire community. And in this past year, during the pandemic, I've been a constant voice for timely, fact-based decisions focused on providing a safe learning environment. I'm the only incumbent on this ballot that was focused on offering choice to our families to do what works best for their needs. Now we must focus on moving our district forward, supporting the academic growth for students, creating a positive teaching environment for our staff, and increasing the reputation and desirability of D31. When making your voting decisions, please remember my strong, consistent, and balanced track record focused on the greater good of our students and community. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Slade, you're next.
Thank you to the League for hosting this forum today. My name is Allison Slade Rothstein. I'm a Northbrook native and a Glenbrook North alumna. After I graduated from Washington University, I decided not to take that corporate job that I was offered, but follow my heart and go to Houston, Texas to become a teacher in Teach for America. I was inspired by my experiences there to write a proposal for the country's first public elementary school, integrating mental health, physical fitness, and nutrition into all aspects of education. In 2004, I opened Namaste, this K through 8th grade award-winning school, and served as the school's principal and superintendent for 12 years after being a teacher, a coach, and a professional development provider for various districts across the city and the suburbs. Building a Chicago public charter school from the ground up provided a remarkable opportunity to adopt best practices in all areas of education. These include facility, education, and budget management. I'm passionate about using the most data-driven and research-based methods to educate our students comprehensively and equitably, a passion I bring to my current work as a professor in educational leadership at Roosevelt University, where I direct and manage the principal preparation program and on the many education-based boards on which I sit. When it was time for my own 2 daughters to begin grade school, I was thrilled to move to District 31, a district with a deep commitment to quality education, a talented staff, and a diverse student body. As a parent, I have seen us suffer a common fate, a comfort level with doing things the way they've always been done, as opposed to really leading into research-based and data-driven decisions. I can bring to this board my vast educational experience at every level of the system, a student-centered focused, data-driven decisions that are fiscally responsible, and a collaborative attitude and experience bringing diverse perspectives together. You can find out more about my extensive board and school leader experience, as well as my candidate platform at www.votesladerothstein.com.
Thank you. And now Mr. Hammer.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I would also like to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this today, and Lynette in particular for moderating. It's a valuable opportunity for our community to get to know the school board candidates. I'd also like to thank my fellow candidates. I really do appreciate the dedication that you show to our kids, and I do appreciate it. My name is Bob Hammer. I'll be Robert Hammer on the ballot. My wife and I, Nancy, moved to from Chicago to the village of Glenview area in 2011. We have 2 children, both of whom attended Winkleman School and are now attending Field School. I was born and raised in Glenview, not far from Spring Middle School. I attended the University of Illinois in the architecture program, and I became a licensed architect in 1991. In the early 2000s, along with my business partner, I started an architecture firm with offices currently in Chicago and Galena, Illinois. Our firm specializes in commercial, institutional, and multifamily projects. I also work with the Alden Design Group, where we design and build nursing homes and affordable senior housing. As many of you know, my wife Nancy has been very active in our community and is currently finishing her term on the District 31 Board of Education. Through her service on the board, I've had an opportunity to become very familiar with the struggles our district has had before and during the current pandemic and the challenges we face in the future. In my architecture practice, we design and build very complex multi-million-dollar projects. These projects require participation and coordination from multiple disciplines and different personalities. I believe I can use the skills I've developed over the years, 30 years of practice, to help us solve some of the challenges in our district. If elected, I'd like to assure you I will approach all issues that come before the board with an open mind. I will be an effective and passionate advocate for all segments of our community, which would include parents and teachers, administrators, and of course, especially students. Thank you for your time and consideration. I appreciate it. I urge you all to come out and vote on April 6th or vote early starting on March 22nd. And I would truly appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Estes.
Thank you. Thank you first to the League of Women Voters and to everyone who's watching. I appreciate your time to learn more about this. My name is Meredith Estes. My family and I lived in Glenview for more than a decade now. And as a mother of 3 girls with both special education and gifted needs at Winkleman Elementary and Field Middle, I have detailed knowledge of how the district is educating our children. I see how hard the teachers work to differentiate in the classroom, how the district staff works to support those children who need additional supports, and how decisions made by the Board of Education impact the whole district. And I'm running because I believe I can contribute with my education, my expertise, my solution-based attitude, and my passion for educating children. I received my bachelor's from Lake Forest College and my master's in public administration from DePaul University. And I've managed nonprofits both as staff and as a volunteer for more than 20 years now. Most recently, I served as District 31 PTO president, and I'm currently serving as the chair of the board for the Glenview Community Church Nursery School. And I continue to run 2 Girl Scout troops. My education background, coupled with my experience as a leader of nonprofits, has given me a unique understanding of what's needed to effectively manage the multitude of moving parts within a public school district. As PTO president, I focused on developing strong collaborations between the school and parents to build successful programs, addressing areas of concern at both schools, and seeking to meet the needs of all students. As a board member, I'll develop collaborative working committees for board members and administration to address specific areas of need. I'll help the board develop a strategic plan with a stronger emphasis on quantitative data to inform district decisions and help guide our superintendents. And I'll continue our fiscal responsibility while developing programs to support teachers and educating all types of learners. These steps will bring about a more cohesive approach to educating our children, leading to stronger home values for our taxpayers, making District 31 a more vibrant and attractive district in which to live. So thank you for your consideration and your time, and I hope you'll vote for me on April 6th.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Greenberg.
Hi. Thank you, Susan, Lynette, and the League of Women Voters for hosting us. Would like to thank all of the folks here. It takes a special combo of courageous hope and dedication to stand up and give back. I'm looking forward to working with all of you. I bring experience, a proven track record of delivering, and commitment to continue to deliver. Experience, I'm a working mom of a 1st grader, a rising middle schooler, and a high schooler. One's gifted, one has special needs. Regardless of where you are in your D31 journey, I've got a foundation of shared experience. I'm a Booth MBA and a PhD in leadership. That gives me financial roots and leadership know-how. I've worked in social impact, walked over 1,000 schools nationally. This gives me a sense of where we're better and where we can be better. I've given back to this community for years, not just on the board, but as a room parent and as president of the foundation for over 5 years. We helped fund thousands of dollars in tech upgrades. On the board, I've helped our district be the first on the North Shore to have full-day kindergarten, brought back extracurriculars, field trips, kept class sizes low so each child gets more one-on-one attention from their teacher, upgraded curriculum, security, HVAC, our facilities in and out, while taking us through some tough financial times to our gold financial rating for financial discipline today. Many of these hard-won strategic investments allowed us to open for in-person school this year. The foundation had been laid. My whole heart's in this work, to create a strong foundation for all kids, because what's important is to meet each child where they are and optimize their potential at an individual level, so each child can be the best version of themselves they possibly can be. I hope to continue our work for District 31. Thank you.
Thank you for your opening statements, candidates. Now let's get right to the questions since we have limited time. The first one has to do with social media presence. Parents residing within District 31 often refer to the district as a hidden gem, yet social media comments on Northbrook and Glenview groups seem to dismiss District 31 as a coveted district and/or completely overlook it as an excellent option. What suggestions do you have that will help enhance the reputation of this hidden gem? We will start with Mr. Stern.
Thank you. I agree with the question, and I think it's the constant challenge and old school sales and marketing, which you don't typically think in relation to education. It counts on active board members speaking proudly about what we've achieved. It is board members talking to their fellow parents, talking to the community, and not being afraid to host open houses and bring people in and have open dialogue and say, look, we were one of the first districts with all-day kindergarten. Look, one of the first districts, if not the first, with one-to-one iPads. One of the very few districts in the entire state that has choice for our students and have full-time in-school programming, but yet still manage to allow families to make their own choice for home programming. So without that, with bringing in the community collaboration, that is the only way to do it. Making sure that we speak proudly and we take grassroots efforts and just keep talking to one another, publishing press releases, inviting local real estate agents to come in so that when they're talking about the neighborhoods and they're talking about houses to sell, they understand the achievements that we have in this district. Overcoming history can be very hard, but we can move forward together in a very positive direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Parfitt.
Excellent question. And, I really appreciated the note hidden gem, because I think that's exactly right now. I moved homes about 3 years ago in the same district, and I chose to move 12 houses away to stay in the district because I knew how amazing District 31 is. I think, there's this perception versus reality from financial struggles that were real about 10 years ago. And the amazing work that the school district has done over the last 10 years has just really made it one of the best school districts, and I brag about how amazing it is. I think what we need to do is focus on engagement, focus on working with the parents and the families, and just find the things that we can highlight, showcase, and be proud of for how much has been done and how much further we can go. So yes, that includes social media campaigns, that includes working with real estate agents, but fundamentally, it really starts with the families. I think we need to find ways to get more of our community engaged, talking to one another, working with one another, involved in programs that strengthen from within and shine brightly outward.
Thank you. Mr. Dapin, same question.
Sure. I mean, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And the way I kind of look at this is, we have a great district. We all know we have a great district. And the way I look at it is that if we want to promote it, people are the ones that have to make the effort to promote it, whether it's on social media, through, newspapers, through any source. And it's just us communicating with one another, sharing the good ideas and the good things that we have done, as a district. For example, just having the 5 days a week full days during, the start of this whole school year, to me is such a great accomplishment. That should be promoted, compared to any other school district, just in the state. And that's one of the best things that we have done just recently in terms of a big program change compared to others. So the way I look at it is it's just us having to communicate, whether we're a board member, whether we're, just a parent or just a community member. That's the only way you can do it, is really just through word of mouth and just through some of these publications. But it's just people doing it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Steres.
Thank you. And thank you for the question. A few years back, as a school board and as an administration, we recognized the need to reach out to our community more and engage the community, share our story. That resulted in the hiring of a professional communications person and an increase in our social media presence, as well as the newsletter that many of us receive on a regular basis in our mailbox. I think our focus lately has been on engaging the families and in communication with the families and showcasing some of the leadership things that we are doing within our schools. We have an opportunity to continue to progress that. And that's really more of a PR campaign. And that's how do we share that great story of our district, the diversity of our district, the leadership role that our district has played in so many of these areas that all of the candidates have highlighted today. We need to continue to scream that from the rooftops. We have talked about engaging more with realtors so that we can bring value to our community. I think we need to increase that. We need to move, again, not just from communications, but a bit to a PR campaign. And we need to showcase the fact that we will not just follow what other districts do. We have our own voice. We've shown that in many of the decisions we've made this past year and long before, and we'll continue to do that.
Thank you. Dr. Slade.
Thank you for the question. Enhancing the reputation of District 31 is important for everyone in our community, right? Our students, our teachers, our staff, and our families. I really believe that, as I mentioned, my experience as a school founder, I had to do just this. I had to build the reputation of a school from nothing. And so I have a lot of experience in that realm. And I would say the most important thing that we can do is to continue to build a more connected, inclusive educational system and program at Winkleman and Field that can be that beacon for our community. People talk about the school when it does really great things for their children. And so we really need to focus on continuing to implement best practices and research-based decisions, having goals that we continue to review on a regular basis as a board. And then we can be really proud of those specific accomplishments that we have reached at the different times that we reach them. A good example would be the recent awarding of the Blue Ribbon Award to Field Middle School, which is a really, really big deal across the country. And I think we can probably do a better job of leveraging that in order to do many of the things that my colleagues here have mentioned: increase home prices, connect with realtors, and things like that. So I think we just really need to focus on making those data-driven decisions and implementing those research-based practices.
Thank you. Mr. Hammer.
Thank you. I want to say first that those are all excellent answers. It's very good, and I agree with all of them. One thing I would like to focus on is family engagement. I actually think engagement's the most important thing here. I like the idea of PR campaigns and emails, but most importantly, I think engagement with our community's families. And I think there's a difference between community engagement and, for example, family participation. PR, those are all good things. I think, for example, I think Nick mentioned board members, or Darren, reaching out, actually communicating with people and meeting people. I think family engagement means we want to get families actually involved and engaged. Maybe there is a family committee or we have to reach families that are maybe currently not participating or maybe participating in ways that we're generally not familiar with. But the big thing to me is the board members getting out and engaging the community, talking to people. That, I think, makes a real impression and getting them more involved in our school community. Sometimes emails and websites and PR can kind of get lost. And I think it's important that we make a human connection with our district's families. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Estes.
Thank you. I kind of wish we could all get in a room and just brainstorm all these ideas together because it's a good, smart group of lots of different opinions. You know, I echo a lot of the same thing. And I do think that to kind of everyone's point, it's a bifold situation, right? You've got to engage the community so they want to brag about us. That's the word of mouth component. And then there is a PR component. I do think that we aren't taking advantage of the parent groups as much as we could. I know that I started some of those things when I was the president. And one of the things that happened was we have this amazing event called the Taste of 31, which we haven't been able to do. That was not started during my time, but continued. And I called the paper relentlessly. And then finally they called the district, and the district was glad to be able to promote that event too. And then what happened was other districts started calling us for, how do you do that? We love to tout our diversity too. Our district is extremely diverse. So those are the things, those individual things that are amazing about our district, and the wins that we can tout. Get the community involved in talking about those by the engagement and by the what do you want to see more of, as well as this PR campaign that we do need to put a little bit more emphasis on. I'd like to see both of those things happen, but I totally wrote down notes from all of you because you're brilliant as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Greenberg.
So I would echo what everyone said. I think there's been some great commentary here. When, you know, I'm assuming the question came from our community, I always think about a complaint or a question is usually an unanswered wish for a positive future, right? And so why do we get this question? And I think it's twofold. Certainly for folks that don't have kids in the district, they want to sell their homes and it's a realtor question. But for those in our district, it's because we lack transparency often in these things. It's true of most school boards because of a lot of rules. And people want to know because they lack the info and they get tired of getting that question. So I think part of it is better educating our parents, right? Like our kids actually do better when they get to 225 than any area junior high. We send more to the gifted program, and they're better equipped to be global citizens because of our diversity. And it's that diversity that blends our scores down a little bit because we get kids from different sort of places. But I think it starts with being more transparent with our own community so that they can feel better equipped to say, actually, we are a gem. And let me tell you. And then I'd layer in all the things Mike Conrad's here said, which is social media and those sorts of things. But I think if you're watching and you're a parent, you can rest assured your children are being educated. We'll always be able to do better. But we run the other middle schools around here, around the block. We do pretty well. Thank you.
Thank you. On to the next question. This one has to do with school during the pandemic and the concerns related to that. This is a two-part question. What is your vision of school for the 2021-22 year in a post-COVID era with or without a child vaccination? And dovetailing on that, is the current parent choice model sustainable from both a financial and educational perspective? This one will go to Mr. Parfitt first.
Glad we sent the tough finance question to me first. It was a I'd say the first part for the vision with or without vaccination, you know, first of all, hats off to the board and the faculty and administrators for the phenomenal job navigating these last horrible 15 months. I think we're in a fantastic position to leverage that bedrock of approach and you know, thoughtfulness that has been employed and build on that for what things look like in the next 12 to 15 months. You know, from a vaccine perspective, I don't want to get into that right now. I think we still have a lot of information to gather and understand. But, you know, I think it's been proven within District 31 that the approach that has been in place right now has worked. And I think we just need to build on from that. In terms of parent choice, I don't know the intimate details of the financial resources because I'm not a board member, but I'm very confident that we are in a phenomenal position to do what's best for our educators and for our children. and for the families that we serve.
Thank you. Mr. Dapin.
Yes, I think for the first point for the vision of 2021 and 2022 school year, I do think that, one, we have to follow the rules of whatever the state of Illinois says. So if the rules state that, you still have to provide an option, then there's no choice. We have to provide the option. But if there is no clear, or if we do have a choice ourselves of how to do it, then my recommendation is we would, as a board, we would have to agree upon what we feel is best for the safety of the students and at that time also for the faculty. So I would, recommend, at some point we do need to go back full time for all students at the school. That should be the vision. And that's what I would hope that we are able to do, for the next school year. In addition to that, with the second point of the current parent choice, is that model is financially sustainable. I mean, yes, we were able to do it this year. So I see zero reason why we would not be able to do that for next year as well.
Thank you. Mr. Steres.
Thank you. And it's a fantastic question, one that of course is on all of our mind, and one that the school board has already started to address. We are in a fantastic position as we go and start thinking about the 21-22 school year. That's in significant part to the work our administration has done with this current school year, supported by the board and the community at large. So I think we are in a better spot, honestly, than most because of all of the efforts that have begun. We have some stuff we have to reconsider as we go into the next school year. We have some programming or some changes that we made that we put on pause this year because of the situation we were in. We have to look to reinstate that, EL programming, extracurriculars. We have to look at how do we engage those students. About 40% of our students are remote. A portion of those will come back. How do we engage with those students? Those are all things we're starting to look at. Can we do all of that sustainably? I believe we can. When we look at the newest guidelines that came out from the Illinois State Board of Education just this week, we have some more flexibility in what we do. We've already started the planning. We've already looked at the sections that were needed, and we will not have to add significant sections to make this work. I think our opportunity will be looking at those students who want to stay remote or need to stay remote. And if that is still an option, then how do we do that sustainably and equitably for those students? If those class sizes are small, as we anticipate there will be smaller remote class sizes, that is probably one of our opportunities to look at as we proceed into next year.
Thank you. Dr. Slade.
So when I think about a vision for a post-COVID school year, which will not be next year, but will be in future years, I think about the opportunity to break barriers and to really try some new and innovative things that we learned from the pandemic. It wasn't all bad. There's a lot of things that have been tried and have been successful with students, and I think we really need to recognize those accomplishments over the past year. I would echo what my fellow candidate said about the school district this year. I think the offering of choice was critical for families and will be critical going into next year. Regardless of what the state mandates, I think we do need to provide that choice and then still follow the science, right, which is ever changing. Lastly, I would say, related to the sustainability question, I fervently believe that with a $35 million budget for 850 students, we can make this work. And what we need to do, again, is use data to drive our decision-making financially. I think there are some programs, as Mr. Steres mentioned, that we should reinstate. And there are also things that we should look at critically that don't necessarily lead to increased student achievement that we might want to change or alter in the future. So in conclusion, I would say, yes, we need to make a choice. We need to innovate and continue to grow. And we also can make it sustainable for our future.
Thank you. Mr. Hammer.
Thank you. Once again, all excellent thoughts and comments. I remain an eternal optimist. I'm hoping that come the fall, we can get as many students back into the schools as possible. I do believe that we will continue to offer a remote option. I would also like to say the current board has done excellent work. Myself, all the families I've talked to, very happy with the current situation. I think, as suggested, I think financially this isn't really an issue for our district, thankfully. One of the things I would like to emphasize is, as previously mentioned, is extracurriculars. Socialization. I think, as we all know, it's not just academics. Our kids want and need to be around other young students and their friends. And I would like to actually see an emphasis on that in particular. It's the socialization. It's the after-school activities. It's been great for them to be in school this year. And I hope that we're able to get as many students in school in the fall. And I do also agree that I think we need to spend some time working out how to improve the experience for remote learners. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Estes.
Thank you. So I of course agree, because there's so many great ideas, but I think that our district has proven, both the board with their decision of choice, which was amazing, and I wholeheartedly agreed and was very grateful to have that. They've proven they can do it. They asked the administration to do that, and the administration said, yeah, we can, and they did. So now they can do it again next year, even if things kind of stayed the same. However, I think there were some things that maybe were not as successful because we were trying to plan it on the fly, right? We all were kind of figuring this out. The reintroduction of some of those projects and supports, or programs and supports for EL, for special needs, things like that need to come back in. Any aids that might be necessary. I would love to see them look at remote pieces and make sure that those students are not falling behind in any ways, because I don't know how that's being gauged in comparison at all. Again, that's to Allison's point of data driven. We need a lot of data to provide that. I'm not sure we're there necessarily. Can it be sustainable? Yeah, in the short term, I think it can, financially and educationally. We are in a much better state than we were 10 years ago, which is really great. But I think that long term, we do need to really start to address some of those things and see how creatively we can make that happen, because it won't be much longer than another year or two before we'll really start seeing some lagging if we don't address those concerns.
Thank you. Ms. Greenberg.
Thank you, Lynette. I think Jeff gave a great update, and Allison gave great counsel from her expertise of where we're at from the board standpoint. I think, and all of you gave great feedback. The truth is, it's going to be a long summer, right? We're planning for continued choice and the possibility of sending remote, and hoping that somehow, some miracles happen. So we're going to be prepared. I think the summer will tell us more. I think what calls into question is there was so much noise on the North Shore across schools about whether we were live or not. And I think what gets lost is that the most healthy boards that make the best decisions, that optimize not just for one constituency, but for many, make space for and, right? We need to open live, and we can think about those kids that are remote. We can think about the kids that are remote and keep our teachers safe. And I think that's the important thing that gets lost sometimes in the conflict, that sometimes the very conflict is what optimizes where we end up. So, I think that this board, and making sure that we all make space for that sort of rigor, right, where we're kind of examining something to make sure we're not forgetting anyone, I think really matters. And so I think our fall, whatever our solution ends up looking like, it'll be optimization with all the things we have. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, for this question, Mr. Stern.
Fun being the last to get to answer the question, because with 7 other great people in front of you, what's left to be said? But I'm here to give opinion, so I will. The current administration has had an ever-changing landscape of how to deal with it. And if you've watched the last few board meetings, what's encouraging to see is the current board, the current administration, the staff have not waited to look forward to what 2021, 2022, 2023 can be. They are laying a foundation with curriculum development reviews. How can we make a difference? How do we deal with differences in learning, whether it's accelerating to the gifted, to bringing up individuals that need additional support? What we need to look at going forward into the new year is adding back into some of those programs where some things we kind of shot down the middle because it was crazy and nuts and we just needed to get this done. But now let's go back and make sure that everyone moves along, and that we look at all the communities, all constituents, people of all learning levels and all learning styles, and making sure we can build systems to encourage them to thrive, to enjoy school, to get up in the morning and say, I can't wait to go. I'm very fortunate with my two children. They get up and they are out the door waiting. They take the bus. They can't wait to get on that bus every morning. In relation to the financial situation, if you listen to the last board meeting, through reallocation and proper planning, it's not a current need. It's not a current worry. They've set us up in very sure footing for the next couple of years. Everyone's budget, everybody wants more money. We'll see what the future brings. Thank you.
Thank you. On to the third question, which has to do with teacher shortages. Illinois, like the US overall, faces an increasing shortage of certified and experienced teachers. What strategies do you think the district should employ to secure a full staff of quality instructors? This one goes to Mr. Dapin first.
Thank you. That is an excellent question. So, I think, with any organization, whether for-profit, not-for-profit, it's always hard to find top talent. That's always the goal. And it's no different than obviously in a school district as well. In terms of, ways of trying to get top talent, top teachers, top administrators, top, support staff, obviously beyond it's, ways of doing it is, no different than just recruiting the ways, whether through word of mouth, beyond just the traditional ways of doing it, looking outside of our district, making efforts, to go into, other communities to try to identify, talent there as well, because we want to be able to make sure we have top talent that come to our district, obviously for our students, because that's what we're here to do. And there's really just, beyond just promoting and through those methods, it's just, if people know people as well, that's another way of doing it. But ultimately, it's just, the recruiting practice is the way it has to go. And one should not just look within the community, but outside of the community as well, too.
Thank you. Mr. Steres.
Thank you. Obviously, the teachers are the lifeblood of our schools and who we rely on to educate our students. We're extremely fortunate in D31 to have a very dedicated staff and set of individuals every day who walk into the building and help our students. We have many long tenured teachers, and we have not historically been faced with many shortages. We have had teachers who stepped up this year, and we've got to look at the scenarios that have allowed D31 to have such a dedicated staff. We have several things that have been done in recent years, and we will continue to, as a board, look at those things. We are continuing to work with the union on our compensation structure for our staff. We are continuing to support them, not just in compensation, but in things like PD days, in things like planning time. We've had many discussions as a board in my 4-year tenure about how we support teachers in what they need in their education and how then they can then provide that back to our students. That is how I think we should continue it. I also want to layer this onto that first question. It goes back to communication and PR. The more we talk about the good things within our district, that's not just for the community members moving into our houses. That's not just for our students and current families. That also resonates within the teacher community. It is a small community, teachers talk, and the more that we provide our staff and teachers, the better it is for the community.
Thank you. Dr. Slade.
So I would agree with what everyone has said related to human capital being the most important tenet of any successful school. Research continually shows that the teacher in front of the classroom is what makes the #1 growth opportunity for students in the classroom. And second only to that is the principal that leads the school. So we have opportunities to increase our teacher pipeline and our leadership pipeline, which has been somewhat revolving at Winkleman over the past couple of years. What others have not mentioned, and I have sort of an unfair advantage at this because this is what I do at a university, is build pipelines of educators, is that it doesn't matter how much recruiting you do if those people aren't there. So I think what our district can do, and the research talks about by 2025, there will be shortages everywhere, even in the most desired places, right? So what our district can do now is partner with universities and get student teachers, create their own grow your own programs within the schools to take those assistants that we have that might have AAs or 60 hours of college, help them get their bachelor's, help our current teachers continue to get additional endorsements to be able to teach hard to staff areas like math and science. So as you see, I have a lot of experience that I could lend to this conversation and this question that I would bring to the board. And I would say there's a lot of creative solutions that we can make sure that we always have that most talented staff in District 31.
Thank you. Mr. Hammer.
Thanks. Again, all excellent ideas. The one I'd like to focus on, I think, is, as Jeff suggested, the PR. I think outreach. I think the more we reach out to our own community and spread the word how good our community is and how great our schools are, I think that can help us create some interest. I like the idea of partnering with universities, developing pipelines for good teachers. You know, something else that occurred to me too is our own teaching staff can be a resource for teachers. You know, talent tends to pool in the same place. In my own business, the best employees we've ever found were working through our current employees and or business partners. And I think we can do something similar in our community. Thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Estes.
Thanks. So I don't have the education specificity, but I do think some of it does carry over, right? Anticipating the needs that are going to come up. I know we have at least one math opening in the middle school for next year that we're going to have to staff, and that is one of those hard to staff areas. So anticipating that well in advance so they can put that out. I want to keep the current ones, that especially the good ones, really happy. So I need some data to make sure that they are getting the supports they need, and that we do look at that as part of our collective bargaining. We did just sign a new contract relatively recently this past year. So that piece is something that would be more of a long-term situation. And then the networking and partnering, of course, I'd like to see our superintendent do some more networking to, you know, kind of see where those plate people are looking to move and things like that. And maybe she can have some more input from the principals and the staff to Bob's point of referrals and things like that. And then again, the PR piece, of course, is part of it. But I think they're doing some good things and we are in a good situation. And so hopefully we can build on that in the next year or two so that we don't get hit super hard with the shortage that's coming. And I'm glad to hear that that needs to be a priority, because that's not something that would have been on my radar initially. So now it will be. But thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Greenberg.
So, you know, I'll echo all of the things that have been said. So systemically, certainly building a pipeline and the marketing and all of the things. But I think, you know, my sister is a teacher. And when I think about why she got into teaching, it was because of the moment when she feels a child learn. And it wasn't to manage a classroom of 30 children yelling and running in circles, right? So I think she does it well, but I think that teachers that want to teach want to see that moment. And so part of it being an employer of choice is all the things we've talked about, but also creating resource-rich classrooms, right? So a teacher can get more time to spend one-on-one with each kid so that kid can learn, so they can do what they love. And also so that we retain teachers so we don't lose that knowledge. Kids love getting the teacher their big brother, big sister got. And so I think it's about educating them, giving them resource-rich environments, and really just creating that community for them, which will allow us to leverage the pipeline that we create, the branding that we do. So that's really what I would start with, is how do we make their day-to-day experience as good as we can for our kids and for them.
Thank you. Mr. Stern.
Thank you. Yes, it comes back to a couple of core foundations. When we're dealing with people, you think about a school is in the business of people, whether it's little people learning and having the best big people in front of them teaching, to great people keeping the hallways clean, to gym teachers, to front office staff. It's a business of people. And so that's what makes it sometimes difficult, because finding people can be hard, as we've already heard expressed. An upcoming teacher shortfall is inevitable for the nation. It's a national problem that needs to be addressed. Being able to recruit people by showing off things that we offer that no other district offers, our diversity, our wonderful, warm community. These are things that you don't get by working in other districts. having a dedicated PTO, an education foundation that works hand in hand with staff and faculty to bring new features and new functions to school, making teacher grants possible so they can actually get additional resources for their room. As a college professor, the best thing I ever had was watching a kid get it and that light bulb go off. That's why teaching is so rewarding and such an achievement. Looking towards things that can be done in the future, I have no harebrained ideas. Why don't we look to people that are retired that live in our community? Maybe they can get certified to be teachers and come in and be a math teacher because they were an engineer at UL Laboratories for multiple years. What a great way to look at a whole new resource pool, because you know what? When you're 70 years old, you're still very functional and you still can participate and actually really see your community come back. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Parfitt.
This is an excellent topic, and what came to mind was all the times that I've been part of long-range strategic plans at all the jobs that I've been a part of, where we have to think about 2, 5, 7 years out, where you need to lay the foundation, the groundwork for anticipating and preparing and getting the resources together to make sure that you're in a position to be successful. I'm so thankful for the last 10 years that the board has invested in putting us in the position where we are right now, where I think we're ready to take on this challenge and be at a competitive advantage relative to everybody else fighting for scarce resources. Building on all the other collective ideas that we have over here, I think at the end of the day, educators just want to be their best selves. And I think that will be up to the board and the administration to find a way to help people understand how we view their career from beginning to end, what the possibilities look like, and how we can be a part of that journey, and just help people do what they want to do and get out of the way so they can be the best teachers they can be for our kids.
Thank you. On to the fourth question, and Mr. Steres, you will be the first to answer this one. The question has to do with diversity and equity. According to the Illinois School Report, the District 31 community is almost 60% non-white. Do you think the schools adequately recognize and address equity and diversity in curriculum, in staffing, in culture, and allocation of school resources? And what additional work, if any, is needed to further promote diversity, equity, and inclusion? Mr. Steres.
So thank you. I think to the first part of the question, do we recognize our diversity? I would say the answer is yes. We absolutely recognize our diversity. It's a regular topic of conversation within the community, within the administration, and within the board. Are we doing enough around adding in the curriculum and recognizing it across all spectrums? There's always work to be done. There's always improvements to be made. We've talked on the board, and it kind of relates back to the last question around our staff. Our staff does not necessarily represent the same proportion of society as our students. How do we get diversity in recruiting in alternate places than maybe we do today? We also just completed an equity audit which is really there to look at how we make every student feel special and how we recognize the uniqueness of our community. We need to follow through on that equity audit. Taking the audit is the first step. Taking the actions and the recommendations from that audit is the important part. We've also recognized the diverse nature of our community within religious holidays. And this board has recently added additional religious holidays to represent the full community. That not only allows the communities to celebrate their holidays, but allows us within the school curriculum to be talking about those special days and why everyone is unique.
Thank you. Dr. Slade.
So thank you for the question. Equity is a subject that is very close to my heart, and that is also a very large challenge for a district like ours that has a very wide spectrum of all types of diversity: racial and ethnic diversity, socioeconomic diversity, religious diversity, as was mentioned. And I think we all have the goal of having our schools, have programs and teaching that families feel accepted and included no matter what their personal beliefs or identities are. Do I think we are there right now? I do not think we are there right now. Do we have the potential to get there? We absolutely have the potential to get there. And I think ensuring equity within schools is, critical for all students and benefits the society as a whole. It's about giving people what they need, not giving everyone the same thing. And really making sure that we have those culturally responsive teaching practices that research shows impacts how students feel about coming to school and engaging in learning. So while we have done some of those things like above the iceberg, as Jeff mentioned, related to holidays, that is the tip. We need to go way deeper down, and really, I hope the equity audit will help us do that. But institute more equitable practices, do a lot more professional development for our staff, and work together to ensure a very inclusive school community.
Thank you. Mr. Hammer.
Thank you. I'll be honest with you. It's this is a lot of ground to cover in a 90-second response. We live in a wonderfully diverse community, and I think I'm going to echo what Jeff was saying. Is I think, for example, the religious holidays, that has been a discussion. I think our staff could use some more training, probably. I think I'm also, however, honestly, I do have some concerns because I think sometimes we need to define equity. What does that mean? Does equity mean, it may mean different things to different people. One of the things clearly we all support is, equality of our students' opportunities to learn and grow academically and be the best they can be. I do think this is something we will continue and should continue to address at the board level. But again, honestly, 90 seconds isn't a lot of time to try and cover something this complex. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Estes.
Thank you. Yeah, this is that hot button topic that kind of started some of the big meetings off last year. And so, we do have an equity audit, which I believe is slated to come out in April. I know they just asked for some clarification. I've been in communication with the superintendent on that. I know that the group I sat in on was kind of all similar people, right? The involved parents of one specific socioeconomic group and race and all of that. And so my input personally was not necessarily what they would be looking for. I also would like to see the board kind of be a little bit more involved in that sort of thing. So are we there? Yeah, we recognize and celebrate to some degrees, and that's great. We do take the holidays off. That's wonderful. I think there are some missed opportunities. I'd like to see the board really take charge in that, own where they are, and really do the work, attend the equity audit pieces, make that happen, and then really come out of the audit that comes to, that comes to all of us soon to do the actual work. We miss the opportunities about talking about the religious holidays. I think my kids come home and go, why are we off again? I don't know. So I think there are even those little pieces of that, that discussion. And then the culturally responsive teaching goes along with that. Are the teachers trained to do that? It's a new standard that's coming from Illinois, so they will be potentially in the future, but I don't know how much our current staff has that to be able to even offer something like, culturally diverse literature at a great place, their own experiences and things like that. I know that my daughter has seen some things come around, which is great, and we certainly encourage that in my house, but it can be a hard thing and there's still work to be done.
Thank you. Ms. Greenberg.
I think anyone who has been a follower of our board will know that 8 years ago, in one of the first meetings I was a board member for, I brought this up as a need, not just because of our demographics, but because of the world. This has become a popular topic this last year, given the events on a global stage. But this was a drum I was beating 8 years ago, right? That got us to the equity audit that finally came through this year. But I think when we talk about equity and inclusion, people can, because they're at different places, get anxious or nervous that things will change or that somehow resources will be redistributed. What I think is important to understand is that an inclusion lens doesn't just talk about race and gender and religion and ethnicity. It is a lens that we use as leadership to say, how do we make sure that every child, and every child has something that makes them different, right? They're artistic or there's something else. How does every child feel a sense of belonging? Because what the research says is that when children feel like they belong, they can learn. And how do we create that for our community? So it goes beyond the surface level stuff. It goes deeper so that whenever we look at something, we say, does a dyslexic child have a chance to see a scientist like them, or a child of color, or a, whoever? And the more we can show those kids that no matter who they are, they belong, it's an accelerator for education. So, I mean, this is a drum I've beat and will continue to beat.
Thank you. Mr. Stern.
I agree with many of the comments already said. This is a large, multiple day, multiple hour, complex topic. Diversity, equity, inclusion is at the core of all of our interests. We want the best for everyone, whomever that may be, whether it's a homeowner with no kids because we want them to have a high value neighborhood, or it's a kindergartner, a child with special needs, or a very advanced learner who needs to be pushed even further. Having the tools in place, you see the pieces of the puzzle come together. Some comments of we need to get to this road, we need to get there. We're never going to get there. It is a continual evolution. When you think you got there, guess what? The goalpost has moved, and the goalpost has moved, because we should always evolve and we should always change, and we should always want to grow in our understanding of the world, of ourselves, of our people, of our children. So it's a line of continuum. It's just going to keep going around in an infinity loop. Once we get to the end, guess what? We'll start over because we have to begin again. Things that the district has done to get us on the right road. Now that we have a direct assistant superintendent of direct curriculum, we can make those changes in curriculum to make sure we're bringing in diversity in books or diversity in speakers and showing kids what they look like. A renewed focus on better HR practices. Even the board itself is a top level place to show diversity. How many women we have on our board, how many men, people of different ethnic backgrounds, different religions on our backgrounds. Does that resemble our community? So it could start from the very top of the board all the way down to the Winkelman Wildcat as they walk in the door on their first day. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Parfitt.
Growing up in South Africa, this is a topic that has been part of my fabric from a very, very young age for the better part of 40 years. And I think it's critical and important that we continue to talk about this and find ways to move forward and improve. District 31 is an amazing district because of its diversity, and it's such an asset. Just the exposure that our children have, and thinking at a global level and scale, and being appreciative of people of different backgrounds, cultures, existences, and identities. It's just phenomenal. We're in a position that not a lot of other school districts might have, and I think we got to lean into that. Part of the things though that we need to do is ensure that as a community, we view and appreciate and meet the needs of our students and family members holistically and individualistically to be successful. And I kind of bring this back to the community engagement perspective where, yes, community engagement is something we all recognize needs to be done and needs to be focused on. But we also need to say, how do we meet the community at their point of need, understanding what is possible and how we can engage with them in a way that they have, physically, logistically, socioeconomically, in all those ways able to engage, because maybe they just can't, and we need to find ways to do better.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Dapin.
I'm very glad I am the last one on this one. So I agree with everyone on what they said. There was a lot of great points. I think, just like trying to understand like what is equity. That's been a topic that has been, very unclear to define for some people and very clear for others. The NSBA says equity is achieved when all students receive the resources they need so they graduate prepared for success after high school. So if that is the definition, then how do we base, our decisions around the resources? And then how do we measure against that? So this is, the ideas that was brought up, such as, looking at the results and the recommendations of the equity audit. I agree wholeheartedly with that. In addition, the training development of all the staff, teachers, support staff, admin, I agree with that as well. And in addition of the, looking to hire staff, from different backgrounds as well, I think is something that should definitely be a focus on as well too. And that's something that, might not be traditional, but that is something that's the direction, because we do have a diverse group of students. So that is all those factors come into play, but it is not something that's going to be determined overnight. It is something that's going to be, take time, as people said as well.
Thank you. The next question has to do with the top priorities of the district. What do you view as the top priorities for the district in the coming term? And how can those priorities be effectively addressed and accomplished? This one will go to Dr. Slade first.
So I think the top priorities for our district are really, as I stated earlier, to be student-centered, data-driven, and fiscally responsible. As in the COVID era, the post-COVID era is going to take several years. And I think the generalized approach is to try to get back to normal. And I think we really need to create a new normal. What we realized in COVID is that our schools, all of our schools, not just District 31, were not meeting the needs of all of the kids, even when they were in school. And so it exposed a lot of things that we can now take to heart and address. So I would really like to see the number one priority to be more data-driven. We were super data-driven in our creation of this dashboard for health metrics, which helped us operationally open and stay open. We need to use that same logic and create a data dashboard for what our big goals for the district are and measure ourselves against those goals at every single board meeting. The second thing I'd really like to see us do is create a more engaged board structure where the work isn't all done at the board meeting, where we create subcommittees, which is very common on boards that I have been on, to actually delve into each of the different areas like finance or curriculum or facility management, and make sure that those decisions then are recommended to the board to make a full decision.
Thank you. Mr. Hammer.
Thank you. One of the things I think that we're going to need to do is, in the long run, is update the strategic plan. I think, we have a curriculum audit, we have a special ed audit, we have the equity audit. I think we need to use the findings from these audits to update our strategic plan. I think that, and I agree, we've learned a lot of lessons through the pandemic here. One of the things I think we're also going to need to do is use the standardized assessments to try and evaluate where we have shortcomings, in particular for some of our students that are learning remotely. And something else, and I'd like to agree with what I just heard, which was subcommittees. I think subcommittees are an excellent idea. Going back to some earlier questions, I would like to see us engage families from the community, see if we can't get more participation, a family subcommittee. I think the more input we get from our district's families and get them involved and take their suggestions and their concerns seriously and really engage them, I think that will make a big difference. Thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Estes.
Thank you. I absolutely agree with data-driven. I feel like we've really gotten away from that. And a lot of decisions right now are made by the feeling at the moment or the person you know, or things of that nature. I do think that we've luckily have some audits that we can go back to on the data piece. So those, along with working committees, which I absolutely agree with. And I think we have a good foundation with a PTO structure and some of those things to start and get the teachers involved in that sort of thing. But we do also need to reach out to the committee with those working committees. So the data piece and then the committee input helps to, then divine the strategic plan. We are lacking a strategic plan. I love the idea of Allison's, data-driven benchmarking system, because right now we go into every meeting kind of not really knowing what we're supposed to be looking for our goals. This also goes into my two other pieces, which are make sure we're providing those sorts of goals for the superintendent in conjunction with her. But right now she's not being measured on anything. And so she seems to be kind of going all over the place too, because there's not any one direction from the board for her. And then lastly, board self-assessment. I haven't seen that in a lot of years, and I would love to see the board hold themselves accountable for what's going on here. And it's a hard thing to do, but a necessary thing right now, because that also goes back to those, what are the data pieces? Are we meeting our goals? Do we have a strong direction for our district? And right now that's not there. So hopefully we can, whoever ends up on this next board can really push those things through. I'm hearing it from a lot of people. So hopefully that's the case. We have such good candidates. We're lucky.
Thank you. Ms. Greenberg.
Thanks, Lynette. So certainly agree, right? A new superintendent needs new goals. And so building the strategic plan, a new one, because we just finished a 5-year one, which brought a lot of the improvements you've seen, and certainly leaning on data. But I think one of the things, and I agree with the committees and everything that's been brought up, so whoever ends up winning, I think will end up carrying a lot of those ideas forward. When you start to move things to committees, one of the things that happens is that one of the great things of COVID is people have seen our meetings. And it's funny because the meetings y'all have seen have been some of the most dynamic meetings we've ever had. They're usually quite dry and boring, I have to say. But I think that's something we learned, right? Piping the meetings helps. So that gets me to my first priority, which is transparency and communication. Data is a part of that, a scoreboard, but also finding more ways for people to get a snapshot of what we're doing and talking about. And that's been a topic in our agenda. The other is to continue to innovate and build, right? Using that data, using the audits that we've brought and build and continue to find different ways to continue and grow and to stabilize and celebrate, right? I think a lot of folks that have been here, I've been here 11 years, I've got 7 more to go, forget that we've come so far. We were on the verge of bankruptcy 10 years ago. And we've done that, and we had 30 kids per classroom, no extracurriculars. The growth we've done in the last 8 years and that got us to the point of the audit is now our springboard to become, I think, really a destination school on the North Shore. So that would be my priority.
Thank you. Mr. Stern.
Thank you. I, again, resonate a lot of the similar comments that have been had. I think the groundwork that has been laid the last 10 years has really given us a forward looking to even set priorities, because before you were scrambling just to keep your head above the waterline. And guess what? Now we're standing on top of the water. So let's now reach for the sky. I also would look at, to me, the question of setting priorities. There's 2 sets of priorities. There's the short term, keeping families safe, getting back into school, meeting social and emotional needs, getting learning differences, whether it's a special education need or an accelerated learning need. Figuring out those things are some very immediate activities that need to take place while remaining safe, following guidelines, listening to the science, taking the data that we've collected, and then coming up with the long term. How do we reach the next 10-year goal? How do we plan fiscally responsibly? How do we look at facility needs? In 10 years from now, do we need a new building? Do we need new science rooms? What do we need new, or what's the newest technology that we're going to have to make a new investment in? Bringing the community in. Quite often we talk about families. I want to make sure that we include more than what families are, or look at the word of families. Every resident that lives in the district, every tax-paying dollar that's here is our family, whether they have a child in the school or not. We need to find ways to hear more voices and ideas and solutions, because they want low taxes. We want great schools. You want great schools. And it's a kind of a continuous cycle. Instead of let's creating problems, let's work together to find the best solutions and set the priorities for the future.
Thank you. Mr. Parfitt.
I'm so excited for our future with these ideas and participants. And, the board has a lot to do, and they've shown that they've been capable and done a lot in the last 10 years. I think that some of these ideas are boilerplate. These need to be things that we think about and do day in and day out, because that's just what you do to operate. Beyond that, there are priorities that I think we need to focus on. And from my perspective, it's the safe full-time in-person instruction, making sure that students, teachers are safe at school and ready to ramp up and address, educational challenges that we face over the last 12 months, as well as mental health and, spending time with one another as kids, just being kids. We've got to really focus on that and what that means for our children. The next one is bolstering the special education program. We've done a great job, but we can do more. We've had some changes, over the last few months and weeks, and we're going to need to monitor that and make sure that we meet people at their point of need and pay attention to what's going on and if we're doing the right things the right way and make adjustments as necessary to make sure that people don't fall behind. And then finally, we've heard this many times already, but increasing parental and family engagement in District 31 at a board level, at a school level, in a classroom level, and creating that community of inclusion and support by increasing feedback opportunities.
Thank you. Mr. Dapin.
A lot of great suggestions here. I agree with everything that was suggested. One that I wholeheartedly agree with was the topic of the 5-year plan that I believe Laura is the one who discussed that there was a plan. That I think is really the most important thing is let's develop a plan or use a plan and update it because of the pandemic, environment, and use that as our guiding, or setting guiding principles against that. So then we can measure against that. And so then people know, whether they're administrators or teachers or support staff, what we are trying to accomplish and then how they can support those goals. That's, to me, is the ultimate thing. And the plan should always be based around 2 factors: high student achievement and quality instruction. All the other pieces are components of it, but we have to stay as a board, focused on the main vision of the plan and not get too focused on the operational pieces. We have to stay more focused on the strategic and governance.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Steres.
Thank you. And again, great ideas from across the candidates. Let's start with the strategic plan. I think there is absolutely an awareness and acknowledgement that we need to have a new updated strategic plan. That's been conversation with the board and administration, and there is a plan to get that done this summer. It'll be a great time to have a reconstituted board with at least 2 new members to help advise and guide. And there's a plan to get more community and teacher involvement throughout building that plan. But the question was really about what I believe our priorities are. And specifically, I think there are a few things that we need to focus on. First and foremost is the obvious. It's preparing for a 21-22 school year that is still somewhat hindered by COVID. That should not be an excuse for us to not make progress, but we have to also address that reality. And again, the reality of either learning gaps from this past year and transitions for many students who may be moving from remote back in person. We also have to move from constant curriculum planning and building to actually executing an appropriate curriculum for our students to see all students thriving at all ends of the spectrum. We have to stop talking about how we're going to build that and go forth with executing it and making sure it's consistent and progresses grade to grade. As also has been talked about here today, we have had turnover in our administration ranks over the last several years. We are getting to a point of some stability there. We owe that stability to our students and to our staff, and we have to capitalize on that stability and now begin to show some leadership, some direction, and some focus on how we're going to continue to see the district thrive.
Thank you. Well, we've reached that point where we are at the last question of the day. This one has to do with community input. What do you think could be done to involve parents and other stakeholders in school board decisions, as well as the planning and implementation of school policies? This one will go to Mr. Hammer first.
Thanks. I'm going to take 10 seconds of my time here to say that all the candidates today have given really smart, well thought out answers to these questions. No matter who wins on April 6th, it gives me optimism for our district. So thank you to everybody. I think I'm going to go back and repeat myself and repeat a lot of us. I think we have to engage our community. I think it is critical to have the community families involved. I think it's outreach. I think it's open houses. I think it's when we can do it. I think it's social events. I was reading something just a few days ago that one suggestion for reaching families is talk to their kids in school. Ask kids in school, what's the best way to reach your parents? What's the best way to talk to your parents? What's the best way to communicate with them? I like that idea. And I think when we first moved to this district, the thing that got Nancy and I engaged were those social gatherings. We'd all meet at a restaurant and we talk. And I think if we can start to convince other families in the district to maybe start attending some of these things, some open houses and some outreach, and then see if we can't get them to participate. And again, also as suggested earlier, I think subcommittees and see if we can't get some families to participate. Thank you. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you. Mrs. Estes.
Thank you. And actually, Bob, I think I met you at one of those events, so I totally agree with that. So I love this question. And I think, we have made some better strides lately with some more social media presence and things of that nature. And that's certainly one avenue of that. We send out some email surveys and then we kind of complain about the lack of data that comes in. So for those surveys, I think we need to look at how we ask for that information. Does it need to be physically handed to the students? Does it need to be on calls? That sort of thing. So there's that one component with parents and getting that data back in so that they feel part of that process. Translation is a huge thing in our district. Do we need to be translating the materials that we send out? Because we do have such a diverse group with multiple languages in use, several actually. Are we using our parent groups to help us get the word out? I mean, that's another potentially free and collaborative working place that we can, get more information out, ask for feedback, that sort of thing. There's that piece. And then also, I think that we need to do more snippets of things, right? Video messages, social media. We have sent out newsletters, but can we do that in a better way now, either new and other technologies that we can get out to our broader community so that, again, we get this buy-in, we get this information back, and we really begin to get some better PR for our district. So I do agree, again, for the working groups on that, that's something that we need a lot of people to kind of come in and brainstorm and then bring a recommendation to the board on that. And again, I echo Bob. I've been really pleased. I'm so excited to have such a great group because, gosh, we had write-in candidates not so long ago, guys. So thanks for all of your hard work even thus far. I'm excited to see what our district brings.
Thank you. Ms. Greenberg.
Thanks, Lynette. So I think it's a fantastic question that the board, and I think any well-functioning board asks itself often, right? It's like, how do we engage folks? And it's complex because, even just running a school, as an MBA, when I learned exactly how school financing works, when I finally understood it, I was blown away by how much updating it probably needed nationally as a country, right? So we have these super nuanced systems and rules around governance, and then we want transparency of something complex. So it's hard, right? But people are tired. And I think 2020 has been a tough year. So I think the first part is creating a roadmap so that next year we make information easy to digest so people can engage where they're at, right? Whether that's social media or a quick email or a quick board note, and get them engaged. The other piece is opening our buildings to parents. We've done things like Seesaw and things like that, but really opening our buildings, right? Drop your kid off, say hello, engage, where parents feel, I feel this year is really so isolated parents from our buildings that it would be great to get them back in there, right? And the PTO plays a big role. All sorts of things that we've talked about here are great ideas. Before I close, I'd like to say to all of the candidates, there's not one of you that I have not seen create a basket for an auction, run a fundraiser, cry for our school. And we need to remember that we're neighbors and we're all running and fighting for an unpaid seat on a board to have the privilege of being there till 1 a.m. fighting for things. So love to all of you. I wish the best for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stern.
Thank you. I think the concept of community engagement, Bringing it back to being simple, we have to be a community. We have to engage. We need input. We so often talk about learning differences and different languages and all the things about our children. Let's not forget our community at large have those same differences. Being a lifelong dyslexic, it's a badge you wear proudly. You never get rid of it. If someone asks me to fill out a 10-page survey, guess what you're going to get back? Nothing. It's not how I engage. I'm a verbal communicator. Making sure that families have ways to give that feedback, whether it's phone surveys. Yes, during the pandemic, we can't exactly shake hands. We can't exactly go door to door like we used to, but being in our communities, whether it's families with kids, families without kids, knocking on doors, telephone surveys. Hey, call the office. Please respond to this. You want us to read it to you. You want it in a certain language. You name it. Let's get them involved and let's engage them in the platform. That data will then drive everything else we talked about this afternoon together. Also, to echo my fellow friends here on the phone on our call today, as I say, friends. We're all friends first. We're all community second. And yes, any one of you being on the board, I'd be proud to sit there and listen, and I'll be more than proud to sit there with you side by side, helping direct where our district can go in the future, which is only up from here. The sky is the limit. We set our own limitations. So let's just go and push hard as a group. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Parfitt.
As I mentioned earlier on, I've been in the school district for 8 years, and I'll be in the school district for another 10 years. One of the most vivid memories I have was, when Laurie and I were first starting out, said we don't know many people. And we went to an outing at Meathead, and it was with the kids, other families there, and Emmy just started interacting with other kids. I was like, oh my God, my life's coming to life here. I think the community engagement aspect is just so critical and so powerful, and that's why it's in my top priorities as well. So helping people find out how they can find that livelihood, that engagement, that family feeling, the friends that we have amongst ourselves right now, that's the magic of our community. And bringing transparency and helping people be active participants is crucial. And recognizing that not all families have the same hours, the same means, the same ways of access to internet or communications. We need to meet people at their point of need, and that's what we need to focus on. And I know this group can do that. And thank you all for your participation. Thank you for being on the board. Thank you for running together. Thank you for making our voices heard. And let's continue to make District 31 amazing.
Thank you. Mr. Dapin.
Sure. Well, first of all, just like everyone else said, I agree completely. This is a great group of people. It's a great community, and I wish everyone the best of luck. And if I do get it, I'd be happy to serve with each and every one of you if I could. So, but in any case, in terms of the community input, I agree with a lot of stuff that was said about the social events. I think that's a great way of doing it. Because a lot of people are not always going to be necessarily reading all the communications that are coming out. So how do you get people who don't normally do that? Another way is obviously getting people who are very active in the community to actually reach out to people, that are not necessarily that active in the community. And that's not an easy thing to do, and I know people, we've tried different methods of doing it, and not everyone's going to do it. That's just how it goes. But, it doesn't mean that one cannot give their best effort to try to do it. Because you never know if someone, hears something that triggers that all of a sudden that, hey, that's something I'm now interested in. And I do want to participate, or I do want to actually, have a say. And that's where I think, whether through these different ways of communicating, whether, as I said, through the social events that I know Bob brought up, which I completely agree with, initially on this, and also just through, just talking to people who are, just in general that you haven't really talked to that much, just reach out to them.
Thank you. Mr. Steres.
Thank you. A lot of the theme of many of the answers today has been around engagement and how do we work with our community, and that's fantastic. When we think about community input, I think we have to go more than just the attempt. And so sometimes we like to count how many town halls, how many forums or sessions we've had with the community. What we don't count, though, is the participation. And that's how we're going to really know, are we engaging and getting the right input from the communities? Having the event is a step, but are they really engaging? Are they feeling right for the community? Are we getting the right audience? That's what we've got to start to measure. And I think that's something that we need to do as we progress. We also have to make sure that participation is representative of our community. It is very often that participation is the same subset of families and not fully representative of our community. We have to figure out how to engage with the entire D31 community, 850 students worth of family members out there, as well as those who don't continue to have kids in our district. And that, I think, is the challenge ahead. I think we have to acknowledge, though, that just having forums isn't the right way to do it. We've got to get the participation across the board. And I want to end as well with thanking the League of Women Voters, Lynette, thanking you, as well as all the candidates. Congratulations on really some great ideas that I know this district can take forward. And thank you all for being willing to commit your time to this district, because it is so important to see us grow.
Thank you. Dr. Slade.
I would echo everyone's comments as well. Our community is incredibly unique and has incredible opportunities to continue to grow and succeed. You know, I know we have the potential to move from good to great, right? And I really want to help champion that effort. I think when we think about community engagement, it is unique in our system. And I think when we think about what the board can do, it's interesting when you read the board roles and duties and priorities or responsibilities. The last one says communicating the school's activities and operations to the community and representing the needs and desires of the community in educational matters. And I think we have a responsibility as board members to do that. And there are lots of ways to do that. I think one of those is to be proactive rather than reactive in our communication. And some of the ideas that I've mentioned before around committee structure, around finding different ways to engage with people will be critical in that. And making sure that we continue and follow through with the things that we start. Oftentimes we start things and then they sort of fizzle out, and then it prohibits people from wanting to engage further. So I'd like to see some additional follow through with that. And I've got a lot of ideas about creating the community center within the school, but I would leave those to discuss with anyone who's interested in talking further. I would echo, this has been fun. I never thought I'd say that, but it's been fun to listen to people and to really consider how excited everyone is to make our district a better place.
Thank you so much. And now we've reached the portion of the program where you get to make a closing statement. We're done asking you questions, and you'll have 90 seconds to convince the voters that you're the right person for the board. We're going to work in reverse order from that which we started with the opening remarks. So we'll start with I'm sorry, it turns out we are not doing closing statements. So I'll just take this opportunity to thank you all for coming today on behalf of the League of Women Voters, Glenview-Glencoe. You're all very strong candidates. I hope that everybody goes out and votes on April 6th or by mail or early voting if you have the opportunity. Thank you so much again, and we'll see you at the polls.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynette.